Nobody sees it. What's that?
I got the power. I put them on.
Okay.
The white ones that we have here are so tight and uncomfortable for me. I can't stand them. I've got the K95 too, and I like this, but they don't really touch the face.
Oh, okay.
But
Well, you know, when the
It's a matter of time.
that was one of the things on our list.
Yeah.
And so.
I have to go to the.
You like
high
that?
school. No, I have to go to the high school after this, so I'm the big boy.
They don't do anything because they don't have to.
Bags of germs that are flying around that place.
They had apparently a number of years ago.
Spectacular.
Town an opportunity to eliminate some of
I put on my face, I put on my.
John,
I put on my face
as
mask.
much as parents are what today's cost increase.
I was a whole day.
So they're not even doing
Pretty much
that.
all day in preschool, but
They don't have to.
this was like 10 days, it's been a while, but literally.
I just saw that.
What's that?
Yeah.
You know, we have a resident. Then they call back and say, we have an employee that's up there.
That's quite a jump from my
Then a
country.
little bit later, and so when I go up there, I'm like, you.
Yeah. I'm gonna be.
Yes, yeah.
How you doing?
Not bad, thank you.
Tired of wearing this mask, but not for that. Feel out of breath all the time. Breathing our carbon dioxide. Jeez, there's even more people here.
Hereby call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Kildare Hills Board of Commissioners. If you would, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as is customary at all our meetings, for those of you who are familiar, we're going to take just a moment to reflect and have a moment of silence. So please join me. Thank you so much. Everybody, thanks so much for being here, especially on such a blustery and ugly night outside. Up here up front, we've got an agenda before you, so we're looking for comments or a motion to approve. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second that motion. A second to my right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First item on our agenda is a public hearing concerning the ordinance amending the town charter of Kildare Hills to change the mayor's term from 2 years to 4 years.
Thanks, Mayor.
Kick us off.
As the mayor said, we are having a public hearing tonight. The following rules of procedure will apply to this hearing. There was a public notice published in the newspaper and posted on the town bulletin boards, which meets or exceeds the statutory requirements for the subject matter. A copy of this public notice of this meeting has also been filed with the town clerk for entry into the official record of the hearing. The town clerk is going to be recording all oral comments in a concise and brief manner. Written statements are going to be recorded in a similar manner and also made part of the record. And they also shall be submitted in full to the town clerk. If speaking at the public hearing, please limit your comments to matters relevant to the issues subject of the hearing and to a time period of 3 minutes. 5-minute exception will be made if there's if there's a spokesperson for a group, or if your statement was submitted in writing. All speakers will be coming to the microphone. Again, you will be recorded. No debates, and please identify yourself when coming forward just by giving your name and address. So now this public hearing is going to come to order. This hearing is called for the purpose of the Kildover Hills Board of Commissioners to consider an ordinance amending the town charter of Kildover Hills to change the mayor's term of office to 4 years. And nobody is signed up, so I'll call from the floor if anybody would like to speak on this particular issue. All right. If we can turn this over.
All right. For those who are following this, the topic came up some time ago. Now this end originally, but with wide support among the board. It's a fairly lengthy process that involves a number of steps. No action is necessary to take tonight, but we bring it up for a round of discussion if anybody's interested in adding anything to the conversation.
I have no further comments. I'm still supportive of it and think we need to move ahead.
So if I understand it correctly, we really have nothing to take action. We want to put something on the calendar, or is that not necessary?
It's already, I was gonna say, and I heard the clerk just confirm that it's actually already considered scheduled for additional board consideration. That's gonna come up at the March 7th, 2022 meeting.
That's what I
So
thought. I just wanted to
we don't
confirm
need
that.
to put it on a schedule or, and again, we can't take any action tonight. There is further consideration that'll be had. So unless there's any further discussion, you're not gonna take any action. You're just gonna close the meeting.
All right, well, I guess we'll close
Or here.
the hearing. That's right. The public hearing has come to a close. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, then we will go on to other business. The next item on our agenda is one that we do twice every meeting, which is public comment. There'll be an opportunity here at the beginning and again at the end. Similar to with the public hearing, we have some rules about that. It's an opportunity for anybody to address any topic of their choosing, but we ask when you're called upon to please identify yourself, your name and your address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you're speaking for an individual, 5 minutes if you're speaking on behalf of a group. If you have written remarks, please give them to the clerk, and when you're finished, and they'd be included in the meeting record. Has anybody signed up?
Mayor, we do have one, Miss Julie Owens Robinson.
Okay, excellent. How you doing, Julie?
Good, how are you?
You're good.
I am Julie Robinson. I'm from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Address is 203 Dogwood Trail in Elizabeth City. I've emailed several of you, so most of you already know what I'm going to talk about, I think, but I do want to thank those of you that responded. I really appreciate your response. I'm part owner with my sister, Diane Owens Jones, of a historic landmark designated cottage at 2019 South Virginia Dare Trail. We learned recently that the property at 2023 and 2025 South Virginia Dare Trail is in the process of being purchased by Saga with the plan to build 2 22-bedroom cottages with event spaces on that property. We've also learned recently that our neighbors to the south, adjacent to that property at 2021, have also put their house on the market, which is also a historic landmark cottage. And it is in the process of being sold to Saga as well. So we are very concerned about these plans. Our family has a big history in Dare County and in Kildover Hills. My great-grandfather, Lord Byron Perry, also known as LB, was a builder here in the 1930s and the 40s. And in fact, helped build some of the landmark structures in the county, such as the Buchanan Cottage and the First Colony Inn. He and my great-grandmother lived here in the 30s and 40s in what is now the home to Nag's Head Hammocks, which he also built. Our cottage was actually his workshop where his tools and materials were stored. It was moved across the road and converted into a cottage so that he and his wife could enjoy it in later years. My family has spent every summer at the beach since I was a little girl. We came down here as soon as school ended and stayed until Labor Day. My father would drive from Elizabeth City every day to be with us. We didn't have television or TV, but we enjoyed swimming in the ocean and playing on the huge sand dune behind our cottage, which still exists there today. We have a screen porch that was actually part of our living space. It was our haven. It's where we ate our meals, where we enjoyed the breezes, where we slept if it was too hot to sleep inside. The screen porch, the swing on that porch is one of my favorite places. I even remember watching the moon landing there. We had a little TV that we brought in with foil wrapped rabbit ears that we watched history being made. Our family has continued to enjoy the cottage as my children and my sister's children grew up there in the summer, and now our grandchildren. So 5 generations of our family have loved and enjoyed the space. I'm speaking to you tonight just to go on record to let you know what a tremendous emotional connection we have to the cottage, to our ancestors, and to the town. I understand that change must happen, and I know after talking to many people who have been in this fight and several that have been involved in trying to stop the construction of these large houses, that there's really nothing I can do. But I can speak out and let you know how difficult it is for a family to have to think of selling or tearing down a structure that is so important to their family history. Because you know as I do that the construction of 3 monstrous houses next to our small cottage will engulf us, block our breezes, create problems with noise and safety, invade our privacy, and disturb the integrity of that beautiful dune that we've enjoyed since childhood. That area of the beach is already heavily congested with the 2 motels there, the house that's being rebuilt that burned last year, as well as condos, and now the addition of another 3 houses there. It will be almost impossible for families to find a place to enjoy their time on the beach, not to mention the environmental impact of all those people. I've heard all the arguments from the town, including the legal issues involved in restricting square footage and stopping construction of these large event spaces. To me, it is a shame that regulations were not put in place several years ago to maintain the beauty and history of the town. Kill Devil Hills is now known not as a peaceful family beach designation, but a town of commercial enterprises with monstrous event houses and congested beaches. I'm terribly saddened and disappointed by the lack of vision and foresight, which has resulted in the loss of the history of this town. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else interested in coming to speak for public comment this evening for our first? Hearing none and seeing nobody moving toward the podium, we'll close public comment. So opportunity for response to public comment. I appreciate talking with you and your neighbors as well over the last few weeks, and I think that I've said before, and I'll repeat here again, that I think we're all very empathetic to the march of progress and how it comes to these moments in time where you're faced with these tough decisions. I would take the opportunity to say that we, as a board, have worked very hard on this issue, and previous boards have too. You stated the issue pretty well. I think that something might have been done dozens or decades and decades ago that might have had a legal avenue to restrict it a little bit more. But today we're trying to make those incremental steps that incentivize the things that we do like to see and disincentivize the kind of conflicts that you have in differing uses being adjacent to each other in that zone particularly. So we take great pride in our couple of things that we passed over the last few years that incentivize fire suppression, which can't be required by what we've gone at the state level, and there seemed to be a brick wall there. So we now have policies in place that incentivize large homes to have to use as an option a sprinkler system or a fire suppression system, and I think that that's going to be very successful going forward. We've also put in place incentives to encourage folks that have property along the OIR and the Ocean Impact Residential Zone. If it's a large enough parcel, like in your neighborhood where they're really deep, 400, 500, 600 feet deep and wide enough, that maybe that incentivize making cottage courts where smaller homes might be built. Small homes, we say, haven't been built in a long time along that area. We do have some being built in this next year and a couple other areas not too far from what you're talking about. So I think those will be some of the first homes that are below 3,000 square feet that have been built in many decades. So we're very proud of that little bit of progress that we've been able to make. You know, it's not what we like to do, but that seems to be the most that we can do. And we've had some success where others have not had success in the past. Circling back, I think I speak for everybody here that we certainly empathize with the situation. My family has a cabin that was built by my great-great-grandfather 100 years ago, and it's in the middle of nowhere out near West Virginia. But if a giant cruise ship house got built next to it, it would break my heart in the same way that your heart is being broken these days. So we feel for you, and we're trying our best up here, and we hope that everyone realizes that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add?
I just had, as I was reading your email this afternoon, and of course we've gotten some from Joan Small as well, but and this might be something for us to maybe add to our retreat, but I was trying to think outside the box a little bit and think about it, coming at it from a different angle. And I know that we have the historic preservation, we have the reduced taxes, but can we look at other areas, potentially look at other areas of what they do to preserve their historic districts? Is there anything else? I mean, I think I know the answer, that enterprise and fair market is always going to win, but could that potentially be?
So North Carolina general statutes allows for historic districts. That's where the town started when we started our program. We tried to get a historic district. You have to have a certain percentage of the houses built before a certain time period. The time period is truly before Kettle Hills was Kettle Hills. And the houses that remain from that time period do not meet the threshold for a historic district. If you can create a historic district, yes, you can very much prevent any type of development you want, and you can prevent the removal. It also doesn't let anybody have an option in that district to do anything else. It's very, very strict. Kettle Hills doesn't meet that qualification. A very small portion of Mrs. Head does. They have a certain percentage within a certain radius that allows for some historic district. They also have one of those houses, I think, is National Registry. That's got some restrictions that surround it and its adjacent properties. Fortunately, Kettle Hills did not have any of that. Therefore, at the time, we did the historic landmark as our ability to try to preserve what we could of Kettle Hills. And the historic landmark does allow for demolition of a landmark. We can't prevent the demolition of a landmark.
Right.
That's not what's in the statute. We're a tier down from a historic district, and we tried really hard. We went through the whole review process and inventory and everything, and we did not meet the threshold to be able to create districts.
And I was thinking more along the lines of, like, not necessarily preventing, but if there are incentives, any incentives, which we already do a pretty large incentive for them, but that just, I don't know.
When I explain historic district to people who aren't familiar, I often say all of the residents of Kettle Hills and all the property owners who don't live here are all contributing a little extra tax so that we can have these tax breaks for historic structures that we want to keep. So everybody, that's widely supported by all stakeholders from out of state and all the folks that live here. So that tool is in the toolbox and being used.
And the Robinson's house has been in the program for 8 years.
I think so.
7 or 8 years. They were one of our first 10 houses in the program, and they actually got the house that's for sale now in the program. We liked, and your house got us to the Robinson house. So there's a little streak there that But,
Yeah.
and like
Well,
I said,
and
that was our first district that we tried to inventory, was from the beach club to just past Atlantic Street. There was 8 or 9 cottages in there that were all between the 30s and the 50s. But the threshold at the time was like 1945, and we didn't have enough below the 45, even though some were 52 and 53 and some were 30, you know, 3. That was where we first started, was that the John Woolard stretch.
Well, I know it's hard when you have, you know, when you have heirs and things get left and then people don't want to leave it the way that's. Just trying to think of.
Just as long as we're having kind of an open discussion about it, I often tell people about a program that I saw when I was out west in a little town, Crested Butte, Colorado. It's a old mining town, has a bunch of 100-year-old buildings. Their challenge is that there are a bunch of ranches around the outside, that the generation that did all the ranching is retiring and their family members don't necessarily want to be in that business. And their worry is that, you know, these big sprawling, beautiful areas where there have been hikes be turned into, you know, miles of condos and things. So they had an interesting program there where a nonprofit was set up that sold these little flags that you could hang on a string in the front of your property or on your house. Each one of them was $10. And they probably cost a few pennies. It basically was a donation, and the flag was your showing that you had donated. But that incentive to say, hey, I want to be part of this, raised millions of dollars, $10 at a time. And that group continues to buy ranch land and deed restrict it, put it in protection in perpetuity. I can't say that word, forever. So I thought, well, you know, might be a model there that we can, you know, it's not for government necessarily. This is a nonprofit that did it. But.
Yeah, and we've had people interested in buying some of the historic landmarks that were slated for demolition. They do a certificate of appropriateness, and it can't be denied, but it can be delayed for 365 days for fair market purchase, relocation, or preservation. So when someone gets permission to demolish a local landmark, it's 365 days from that approval to allow for it to be preserved. We've had 2 where they tried to move the houses. That's become more difficult with Dominion. And the land that the houses sit on is so very, very valuable that it becomes cost prohibitive for some people. But there are historic landmark commissions that have budgets for the purchase of houses to keep them in the system. But again, the land that these houses sit on here is very different than other places in North Carolina.
Downtown in the middle of.
Yeah, it's not a $2 million piece of land that the house is sitting on. So it makes our situation, again, just a little bit different than a lot of places in our area.
And once they get there, then you can't do anything to them, right?
Once they what?
Once they become on that register, then they're locked in, you can't do anything to them, is that what you said?
No. If it's a landmark, if it's in a district, yes,
Correct.
they're very restrictive. But a landmark, you can do modifications to the house as long as they're in the theme of the original structure and same materials like materials. A landmark also doesn't designate the interior of the house, so you can modernize the interior of your house as long as the exterior maintains its historical preservation. It's about the architectural of the era of which the house was built.
Yeah.
And you have to write these long reports and you send them to the state archives and they review it to see if it is a candidate, if it meets the requirements to be a landmark. And you have to show them the history and who built it. And the Robinson House, she gave you a lot of that history. It's a really cool history. And because of the impact not only the house had, but the people had to our community, creates the landmark designation. And that's how that's done. And it's about a 90 to 180 day process to go through all the research. And then you have to do a full deed research, which we do in-house. I got really good at digging up old deeds from plats, but, but the downside is because it's not National Registry and it's not in a district, they do have the ability to demolish it.
Right.
They have to pay the back taxes, 3 years of the back taxes, regardless of how long they're in the program. That's how the general statute reads, so.
It's an interesting topic and one that we've taken up a number of times just in the last couple of years, but certainly I remember it in more meetings than I can count, stretching back a couple of decades. But we thank you for your time and thanks for bringing it to everyone's attention and keeping it on the front burner like we do.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is ongoing business. Something I'm supposed to know. Seen that on the- All right, so we'll move right to new business.
It used to be old business and the term changed.
Term for, I was gonna say, that's new, right? It used to be old, now it's ongoing. Okay. That's a better word, really. Old business doesn't seem right. Ongoing.
Casey must come up with that.
Surprised me too. I can't take credit. I was like, oh, no.
That does make sense. It's not rotting on the vine. It's still ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Next time my kids tell me I'm old, I will tell them I'm old.
I'm ongoing.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's good.
So in shiny, happy, new business, it says new business twice. New business, new business. I'm very excited about the new business.
There you go.
I'm sorry, we don't see. Go ahead. There you go.
I'm just going up and.
The beautiful and wonderful Jolly Roger, speaking to historic places, right? So we have in front of us a site plan that has been through the planning board, and it's proposed 4,118 square foot addition to the Jolly Roger restaurant. And from looking at it, it looks like a great deal of modern parking where none had been before. Plus the little gazebo over the water. Looks like a really interesting plan. Did you want to give us kind of an overview? Well, we've all taken a look at it, but does anyone have any questions?
I had a question. I thought it was really nice.
I understand this has been
I was impressed.
tinkering in the works for many, many years.
Many years. At one time, Ms. D'Angelo wanted to put a structure that looked like a ship on the roof.
Oh, wow.
And that was going to be difficult architectural. But Carol Ann has been talking about this for quite a long time. This is actually a plan that was approved by the planning board in 2006, pretty similar to this.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, I'm not sure why they didn't pursue it, but now she's ready to pursue it. And I think it'll be nice.
It's very neat. I was impressed.
Yeah, it's really, really nice little roof line and a little second floor porch and all that. It's a cool, it's nice to have a building that's got some character. Obviously the original building has tons of character.
Yeah.
So you gotta stick with the theme. Plenty of character. And looks like, great drainage plan and landscaping, all the whole 9 yards is in there.
I think it's a huge improvement.
Yeah, rain garden. I love seeing a rain garden.
I like the path that connects the, it looks like a path you're gonna connect to the movie theater more or less, or behind that.
She had an agreement with the movie theater for some of the extra parking that they had back there.
Right.
They were in agreement with when we put that driveway in there, which I think was a really good thing because it allowed people to come on to 4th Street and not make a left on the bypass.
Right.
So that was a good improvement several years ago. But in the wintertime, she'd like to market movie in a shed. Or dinner in a shed.
And that little gazebo is gonna be very scenic for photos and things. I imagine it'll be a destination people seek out. Instagram friendly.
Yes.
All right, well. Let's see, do we need to take any action on this? No.
Yeah, we have to approve it.
Okay, gotcha. I was,
And I would make a motion that, we approve new business item number 1, site plan review, 1836 North Virginia Dare Trail for the Jolly Roger Restaurant. And approve it as presented to us.
Excellent motion on the floor.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Second down at the other end. Any further discussion on the Jolly Roger?
Good job, John.
Thanks for coming out, Don.
Thank you all
Appreciate
very much. The plan is to start construction in September and be ready for
it. September,
September, be ready for 2024.
good plan, good plan. No need to rush into it with the way construction is
Good
right
job.
now.
I know. Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a
Oh,
good night.
can we actually vote? No, we haven't voted yet, so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
You're best. There you go. All right. Any committee reports since 2 weeks ago? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to invite Sue Kelly to talk about, invite Sue Kelly to talk about some things the Community Appearance Commission has been working on.
Super.
Good evening. I'm Sue Kelly, 211 Sea Village Lane, speaking on behalf of the Community Appearance Commission. Last month's meeting was taken up primarily with our tree activities. You all know we offered 10 trees to folks in town. They put in applications and we got well over 20. In fact, we are looking at 26 applications for these trees. Now, we also had 4 or 5 from Collins. So we had to tell those folks, you know, your post office may say KDH, but you don't live in KDH. And they obviously didn't know that. And I'm thinking they probably wish they lived in KDH. But we decided, I'm so tired of breathing my own carbon dioxide.
You're 6 feet away. I think we're all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. We decided that given the status of our budget for this year, that we would give a tree to all 26 of those applicants that qualified for a tree. So we are going to make sure that the folks know the proper care, what to do, how to plant them, to give the trees the best likelihood of survival. But I think it's exciting, 26 more live oak trees in Kill Devil Hills. Sounds like a good thing to me.
Sure does.
We are certainly hoping that your funding decisions for the coming year will include us. We trust you to let us continue. We thank you for letting us make proposals and your serious consideration of them. I think that's about it. Our next meeting is Thursday, February 24th in this room at 8:30, and we welcome anyone's attendance. So if there are no questions, thank you very much.
Round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. This is for you guys.
Got a crazy idea for you. I think the tree program should have its own Facebook page. So all these folks could take a picture of the tree on today, so that 5 years from now, we can see the tree's birthdays as they get older. Great way to keep some focus on it. People will probably share a page like that and give us some more candidates, hopefully, going down the road.
We were pleasantly surprised with the amount of interest we got, because, you know, free adolescent tree, how many people really want that? It's kind of a unique thing for them to offer.
Yeah.
And, 26.
That's awesome.
That's good. That's very good.
We were happy, and it really just barely fit in our budget that we were able to award all of those trees. And just to recap, these are adolescent trees similar to what we planted out here. So it's, the chance of survival is a little bit higher, and every applicant had to explain exactly briefly, like where they're going to plant it, how they're going to take care of it. So the application process kind of really helped us see that these are people who are serious about it. So we're real happy with how this program started.
Super.
And it pretty much wiped out your budget on that.
It did, but
Pretty good choice.
it's I think the people who were awarded trees were notified this week via email.
Yes.
I saw that correctly, and
they're not getting them right away. I think our staff is going to determine the best time of the year for them to plant them. And then it's our plan again later on this next year to have another application period for people to apply again, and this become an annual event for us.
Super.
I think we need to probably ask staff to look at if we can increase that budget for the trees.
You heard it here first. I think everybody would probably be for that if we can figure a way to get that in the annual budget. I often tell people a story, like years ago, there was a piece on 60 Minutes, I think it was. It was about sandwich families, you know, where you're taking care of kids, but also with your parents. And this guy was taking his elderly father away from the family home where they'd grown up for, you know, been in the home for 50 years. And it was this beautiful scenic shot of the car pulling away and this canopy of trees over this beautiful, you know, tree-lined street that looked like something out of a movie. And the son, who was probably my age, a little older, tells the story to the camera. He says, "Yeah, I remember as a kid playing in the street, and my dad had rounded up all the dads on the neighborhood, and they planted these little tiny Charlie Brown Christmas tree looking things with strings on, and we thought, what is he doing?" And then there he was, you know, so beautiful so many years. So it's exciting to think about what these trees will look like 25, 50 years from now.
My apologies if I may speak again.
Please,
I
please.
forgot some stuff, and it relates to the timing. Because we were originally going to do 100 trees, we had a price from a particular nursery. When we decided to go up to the 26 trees, that nursery was not able to provide us with that many trees. So we are now in the process of searching for a nursery that can provide us with that number of trees. And the timing, of course, would not be, planting would certainly not happen before April, which is when Arbor Day and Earth Day and everything is. So that kind of contributes to the timeline. I thought you should know.
Super, yeah.
Thanks.
It's a crazy year for every kind of supply chain there is, and probably includes trees. Right, any other committee reports since last we spoke?
Other than, have we made any progress on a meeting with the Conservancy?
Not yet,
Okay,
getting in touch with everybody,
Okay, cool.
trying to coordinate it.
And we're gonna have a streets improvement committee.
Subcommittee on February
February
22nd
22nd.
at 4.
22nd, 4 PM, in case you missed that.
We'll be looking at next year's and the year after, and then several projects for beyond, just to keep them on the radar and let people know what we've
See, I think that down the road.
what we've seen. But as Steve can tell you, he's getting ready to do a new street update. And that'll be next year, and that'll probably throw some more into the 4 category. So anything after 2 years is kind of dependent on what falls.
You have the new
Falls away.
classifications for everything,
Right.
60 something miles of
Yeah.
roads to check on. It's a good program. It's well-oiled machine at this point. Super, good to know that that's moving forward. Anything from Tourist Bureau? No.
No, I have a meeting next week.
Next
I'll be on vacation, but I'll be joining virtually from Mountain Time, so.
Very
I'll be
nice.
getting up early that day.
Very nice, time shifting.
Yeah.
That's good, that's good. It's good to get some real snaps. All right, then we will move on to Commissioner's agenda. When we start at this end, anything else down here?
Nothing tonight.
I think. BJ?
No, nothing here.
nothing here.
All right, I have an item here on the mayor's agenda. I did get that right, yeah, there we go. I've got a resolution here before you, kind of late addition to the packet. We are excited to have heard that one of our residents here in Killable Hills is celebrating a 100th birthday. And family has reached out, and so we have taken the initiative to create the town's centenarian society, of which she will be the first member. So very excited about this. Virginia Rectors, am I saying that right? Grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania. Her father taught her how to make wine from grapevines, and she later took over that business. She played guitar in an all-girl band. It was good to see these great stories. She's traveled extensively, especially in post-World War II Europe with her husband, who was a colonel. She and her husband raised 3 daughters, and she and her husband purchased a lot in Duck in 1973, built a cottage. That story we've heard many times, and that cottage is still in the family. And she resides at Spring Arbor, and we're very excited to celebrate her 100th birthday. And so we'll also reach out to everyone else in the community. If you know somebody else who's having a big 100th birthday, we would like to know about it and celebrate their life, and hope that we all live to the right old age and then some. So with your nod, I will make that a motion. Second. And I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much for indulging me on that one. Next item on the agenda is the town manager's agenda.
I do have one thing. This coming Thursday, February the 10th, we'll have a service at 4:30 at Aviation Park. And that is for Mary Elizabeth Whitman, our town clerk. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you so much. I meant to mention that as well. I know a lot of us will be there and celebrate another great life here in the town. Town attorney, other agenda tonight?
I have nothing, Mayor and Commissioner.
Then we're back to the consent agenda.
Okay. Consent agenda, you have the minutes for the January 26th meeting, the monthly report for December, and we have 2 budget amendments. One is to appropriate the remaining beach nourishment funds included in the fund balance to the Beach Nourishment Capital Reserve Fund. And then the second one is to increase the crime prevention expenses and fire department supplies for donations that the town received. The next item is Government Education Access Channel. This is the 22-23 budget, and the Government Educational Access Channels Committee oversees operations of the local government and education access channels known as Current TV. It is a collaboration of the towns of Duck, Southern Shores, Kitty Hawk, Kildare Hills, Nags Head, and Manio, along with Dare County and educational entities, Dare County Schools, UNC Coastal Studies Institute, and College of the Albemarle. The committee is composed of a representative from each participating entity. Government representatives to the committee must be members of the respective governing board. Commissioner Gray is the Kildare Hills representative, and the GEACC annually submits its annual operating budget, which has to be approved by all member entities. Approval of the consent agenda will record the Board of Commissioners approval of the 22-23 GEACC budget. And the next item is to schedule a public hearing for the zoning amendment request 153.002 and definitions and 153.177. This is for outdoor dining activity areas allowing cell shades. And the planning board reviewed the above zoning amendment, which I just mentioned. The amendment request is to allow the sunshades to be used in outdoor dining activity areas, which is a special use condition within the commercial zoning district. A draft of the proposed public hearing language is included in the memo that you have attached. The planning board voted to recommend this amendment request to the commissioners with a favorable opinion for a public hearing. Approval of the consent agenda will schedule this item for a public hearing Monday, March the 7th. 22 at 6 o'clock. Staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented, and a motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Got a motion and a second on the floor. Cell shades, great idea. They don't blow away as much as umbrellas.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Just other than, I think, Michael, don't we have planned some upgrades in some of our equipment in here with our next grant money from the GEACC?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah, it's good that's in the budget. They do pretty work over there.
I tell you, it's been real impressive watching the updates from the College of the Albemarle.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man, that's
a beautiful facility
from everything, but that's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah. It's great. They're great that they can share beautiful video of that for us. We
Yeah.
see it and get a tour.
It's all good stuff, but that's been real impressive.
We were discussing, any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. So we have arrived at our second public comment period. I see huge swaths of the public out there dying to clamor towards the podium and going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. Our response to that is, gotta keep it light. All right. So having closed public comment, we're to our favorite part of the meeting where clamors for who gets to make this last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
You have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
You have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you.
45 minutes left.